Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Kaleidoscope Corner. My name is Bajan, and with me I have Melanie today, my co-host, and today's special guest is Mr. Craig, our program director.
How are you, Bajan?
Thank you for joining us
Good
today,
to see
sir.
You guys. Thank you for
Today
having me.
we're going to talk about Extinction Burst. A little bit before we get into all that, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background of it?
Sure. So I guess the first thing we'll talk about is extinction and what extinction is. So extinction is a procedure by which a behavior analyst may withhold reinforcement for previously reinforced behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to decrease the instance of that behavior. So for example, if I was trying to decrease someone's problem behavior, one of the ways that a behavior analyst might do it, one of the techniques they might use is extinction, by which withholding the reinforcer for that previous one. All right.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about extinction, on what the side effects of it may be.
Yeah,
things
so that's
of
what.
that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we wanted to get into today, right? So I wanted to talk about one of the side effects, and that's an extinction burst. So what an extinction burst is that when you introduce an extinction procedure, what sometimes happens is you get a momentary increase in either intensity or in frequency of the problem behavior before it starts to dissipate.
Awesome.
and then go down. Yep. So it may be an increase in the frequency of it. So if it was a tantrum or something like that, it may be a longer tantrum than normal, or be a little bit more intense tantrum than normal. And then if the extinction procedure is continued, it should decrease the frequency of that problem behavior.
Awesome, very nice. And let me ask you this also: how do you handle or prepare for such a situation?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the key things, is that if you're going to use extinction as a procedure, an analyst typically would want to prepare for an extinction burst. So they may want to modify the environment. They might want to inform all the parties that this is possible or potentially even likely, and they want to do whatever sort of programming they could to mitigate that. Yeah.
Awesome. And give me one good example of it.
Sure. So I have a couple. So clinically, in a facility or in a program, what you might see, or in a therapeutic environment, is the example I sort of briefly touched on, which is like a tantrum behavior. So if I'm working with a person who engages in tantrum behavior because and the reinforcer for that tantrum behavior is access to a tangible item. Let's just say it's a cookie. And that tantrum behavior has resulted in cookies in the past, and they have that learning history. Well, then I implement extinction procedures, and it would be that the tantrum occurs, but I don't reinforce with the cookie. And typically what might happen is that tantrum might increase in intensity or frequency. Like I said, it might last longer, it might be a little bit more intense initially up front, and then it should decrease downwards. A funny example would be if you put money into a vending machine. So typically when you put, and I don't even know, to be honest with you, that the vending machines exist like this anymore, but you used to put money into the vending machine, and you used to push the button, and the little spiral thing would come, and the candy item would fall. Okay, that was the reinforcer for that behavior. Well, in extinction was when the candy didn't come out of the vending machine, and typically what you got was a burst. People would push the button maybe 50 times, or they would bang it on the machine.
Nice.
I've seen some people stick their hand up, things like that. So that's an example of an extinction burst. And then eventually you realize that candy's not coming out, and your behavior goes away, and you walk away and you leave it. So that would be a sort of a practical, silly example of extinction bursts.
That's funny. Awesome job explaining the topic of discussion today.
I appreciate
It's
it.
been a pleasure having you,
Thank
Mr.
you, guys.
Craig.
Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
Craig.
Program Director, Kaleidoscope Interventions, my co-host, Melanie Maldonado. You guys have a great rest of your day.
If you have any more questions on extinction bursts or the process of extinction, please reach out to your behavior analyst. They can provide more information on how this topic relates to your current situation and can point you to research or resources about this.